If one was to attempt to understand how we got here, one needs to go back quite a while back to about 1910, when Nairobi was a tiny little city, no, township, mostly made of tin shacks. It was basically a swamp. And the colonial government of the day discovered that there were nuisance type people called at the time lunatics who posed a law and order problem, and sometimes walking without clothes. And the decision that was then made was to create an asylum as far away from the center of the city as possible, across the valley and on the other side of the river, at a place that you now work, some of you, called Mathare Hospital. Initially, a smallpox isolation unit, but an appropriate place to remove nuisance from the city. About 1937 or thereabouts, a guy called Muindi Mbingu, after the street in Nairobi called Muindi Mbingu is named after him, told the people of Ukambani that it was not a good idea for white people to steal their cows and slaughter them at Athi River at the Kenya Meat Commission. That was considered madness because Mzungu was always right, and Muindi Mbingu was initially treated for insanity of thinking that their cows were their cows, and sent off to what is now Somalia. 1947-48, Mr. Elijah Masinde, a man from Western Kenya, is a prophet of sorts and prophesied that one day Kenya will be free and the white man will go back to where he came from. I think I saw some of the files and the notes were made at Mathare Hospital, where he was incarcerated for dreaming that one day Kenya would be free. 1952. And the War of Independence was all full blast. And a guy called Carothers was asked to write a scientific paper on this agitation by black people who seemed to think that independence was a good thing and that it might even come. But his conclusion was that the brain of the African was smaller than that of the European, and that the functioning of the brain of the African was the equivalent of a lobotomized white man. And that was the explanation for the agitation for independence. She further stated categorically that the African man had the intellectual development of an adolescent boy in Europe. Those of you who are interested in reading will find this information if you key in Carothers. So the War of Independence and the suppression that came was fundamentally, at the time, grounded on the science of the day. They even looked at postmortem brains and satisfied themselves. Fast forward. In 1977, Mr. Jomo Kenyatta was president, and for some reason, he held the opinion that it was important for Kenya to have psychiatrists. At the time, if my memory serves me well, Dr. Konji will correct me right, there was Ghulam Mustafa, there was Willie Muya, and who else? That was it. That was it. Two. So in 1977, Dr. Waihenya, Mutiboko, Ndete, and myself, 4 boys, were sent to study psychiatry. The following year, Okonji, was it Oweno? And who else? Gashingechi David, who we know, followed. And for 3 years, batches of 4 to 6 boys, and boys actually, there were no girls, went to the UK, and some of us came back in 1980, and so on and so forth. When we came back, we did different things. We taught at the university, worked at Mathare. But 1982 was a turning point, because one boy who people thought was funny resigned from the university and set up a private practice on a full-time basis. And he's standing here in front of you today. Fast forward again. Okonji is established, Owiti is established. We're in private practice. We are working and working very hard, creating a name and becoming famous and prosperous. Well, a little bit prosperous. But one thing that was consistent from 1910 and still very sadly holds today is the fact that psychiatric services were delivered in the most horrible of environments. When I visited the country 5-6 years ago as a job I was doing, consistently, whether it is in Machakos, whether it's in Kisumu, Kakamega, Port Trees, wherever it is, psychiatric units have one thing in common. They are far away from the entrance, almost always next to the mortuary, and without exception, very dark and very dirty. Because there was only one unit in the private sector that seemed to have copied the activities of public services and had created a prison-like environment that our patients, Okonji's patients, my patients, Owiti's patients, were locked up exactly as happens in prison, behind grills. And there was a kind of soldier guy who stood there, opening this door, and then you enter. Actually, one of my fears, and I really was afraid a lot of the time, was that we'd all be locked inside there, yes, and never be let out. The place, if I remember, had very tiny windows. Did they have showers? No. If there were, I didn't see them. All right? There was a bathtub. And the meanest looking nurse, a lady with psychopathic tendencies, was in charge of this unit and seemed to have the mission in her life to embarrass and torture the people. This whole story is intended to describe to you how Chiromo was born. Chiromo, as a concept, was birthed by Okonji Owiti, myself, and Dr. Wairimu Ndirango to try and create for our patients the antithesis of what we were seeing at that time. And we held many a meeting, often at Kent Mayor Club on Saturday mornings, with exceedingly clever people in business. And we repeatedly told them what we want is to bring into this world an environment in which our patients can recover in dignity. And that became our motto before we opened. So even when that building that is now called Chiromo Westlands, we brought down walls, we brought to create a feeling of space and air in the room. Because those are the two things that were denied in all the places that we used to go to. More recently, with the help of Dr. Hong, we have created clean showers, big windows, only intending to give human beings the dignity that they are entitled to. Success, and I can speak with some authority, is to be measured only on two accounts. The first one are the outcomes for your patients. That when you spend time hearing what your patients have to tell you, you do achieve good and positive outcomes. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing because the patient you have gotten better is an instant billboard. And it's a billboard that goes around the world saying, huyu daktari, kwa kweli ni daktari. So if you want to be successful in what you do as a clinician, you must get people better. It doesn't matter how clean or beautiful your office is, or how many degrees you have, or how many papers you have published. You're in the business of creating billboards. And billboards are the people you get from misery, from poor health, to good health. That's the first one. The second one, and this is really why we are here today, it's not so much how famous Okonji is. It's not important how many papers Okonji has published. That is not the measure of success in this field. In my very, very, very humble submission, if I can master enough humility, I'll try. I don't think I'll succeed. The true measure of success in the profession is in standing in a place like this and saying, Violent Okech, stand up. I am successful because this Violet Okech is my student. Kweli urongo? Lukoya Tuole? He's in San Francisco. Yes? Okay, another student. In this journey of life, and please allow me to persuade you, success in this journey of life, in my opinion, occurs when we move together. Here we are as a Chiromo Hospital Group, and you will hear the things that this group is able to do, all the way from conversations around CMEs that Dr. Gumbo will describe, a lot to do with our community engagement. Is Victoria here? And what we do, our engagement with church. And I sincerely hope that out of our engagement today, we will have a brighter future for some of you that involves, and I have no apology for repeating myself, that involves at the very least in part improved care for those human beings who are often the most vulnerable human beings in our society, and to whom we have been entrusted by society as the custodians of their welfare. We are running a marathon. I think we are all convinced that this is a marathon that we are running. But for some reason, we all seem to be enjoying it. What we started all those very, very many years ago, 25 years ago, with Mushero and Violent and other people, is bearing fruits. Each and every one of them is doing what is right. Each and every person here is cloning themselves. And that's a big lesson for us. A time will come, inevitably, when you will be asked by those who will ask you, show me one person who can claim to have been mentored by yourself. And if the answer is that there is no such person on this earth, you will qualify for the description, bure kabisa. We are all learning. We are all learning almost every single day. And we have internalized the idea that every working day is a learning day. And I think what we've done here is to confirm that in a relatively inexpensive forum such as this one, you can exchange views, you can inspire, even as you perspire. But we have learned a great deal from each other. That having seen the things that I have seen over the last many decades, I can tell you, whether we are looking at mental health or whether we are looking at this, our republic, the worst is over. The worst is over as far as mental health is concerned. This room was full of you the whole day, and only one or two people slept. Everybody else was listening. So we have turned the corner where you don't have to be afraid to tell your mom that you're going to be a psychiatrist. You don't have to hide it. The battle around the stigma around mental illness is receding, in my view, a little bit like fog clears. If you have driven a motor car in fog, fog clears in patches. And that's why it's so dangerous to drive in fog, because you will hit a patch that will be foggy. The overall message in our country is very clear. We are moving forward, and I will accept no credit for what was done by the task force, but that set the foundation of the new era. I cannot live here without saying that the darkest hour is just before dawn. Dark as this hour might appear to some of you in this our republic, sure as the sun will rise tomorrow, a bright day is coming. I would like us to convene this group of men and women in the next whatever period of time you think is appropriate to look at the positives in our country. People look at, our country, I don't know who, our country is good. It's not true. Our country is moving in the right direction, very slowly, but very steadily. We cannot escape the reality that we as psychiatrists are effectively the leaders of thought in this country.